Step into our realm of empathy and insight, where we explore the intricate nuances of relationships and foster connections that withstand the test of time. Caleb occupied the role of a long-haul truck driver, journeying homeward after an extended voyage. Enveloped in the midst of an extended trip, he eagerly anticipated reuniting with his cherished beloved. Nearly a decade had elapsed since Caleb and Avery's union in matrimony, a passage of time that had surreptitiously elapsed. Every facet of their familial existence exuded wonder, yet a solitary shadow dimmed their elation: the absence of children. Undertaking a comprehensive battery of examinations, they confronted the doctor's resigned shrugs. A pact was forged before Caleb embarked on his recent expedition. Upon his return, the couple would initiate the bureaucratic process of adoption. In orphanages, countless children harbored dreams of parental figures and a family to call their own. Perusing the image repository, their hearts swelled with poignant emotions. Now, with autumn's darkness shrouding the highway, Caleb was at the wheel, fixated on this impending endeavor. Abruptly, a figure materialized on the road. Brakes were hastily engaged, the horn resounded. Exiting the truck, Caleb was confronted by two diminutive silhouettes illuminated in the headlights a short distance away. Drawing closer, he was taken aback. The two figures were young girls. The obscurity of the night veiled their trembling from the cold. With an amalgamation of anxiety and hope, the girls regarded the man. Speaking in tandem, they urgently related their grandmother's deteriorating health and pressing need for assistance. Seated within the truck's cabin, the girls were comforted with a steaming infusion poured from a thermos, as Caleb inquired about the way forward. En route, the girls narrated their existence alongside their grandmother, bereft of parental presence. An errand to town had been dispatched by a benevolent neighbor, leaving them hesitating to solicit help from less favorable acquaintances. Consequently, they found themselves on the highway, their aspirations hinging on a benevolent passerby. Having traversed a distance, Caleb arrived at an unassuming hamlet, veering a mile from the thoroughfare before halting beside a weathered abode. The girls disembarked the vehicle, Caleb following suit. The domicile emanated an air of desolation, its furnishings betraying their antiquity. There, atop a mattress, reclined an elderly woman. Caleb's approach revealed her feeble, muted moans. Upon touching her forehead, he discerned the fever's relentless grip. The dwelling lacked medicinal supplies, prompting Caleb to summon an ambulance. In the interim, he eased the woman's distress by administering cool compresses. Paramedics eventually arrived, their appraisal condemning Caleb for what they deemed negligence. A woman suffering from pneumonia should be hospitalized, not sequestered within these humble confines. Fear gripped Caleb, dread that the girls might be consigned to an orphanage as their grandmother found refuge in the hospital. Presenting himself as the woman's nephew, he navigated the situation. The ambulance departed, the grandmother ensconced within. As silence enveloped the dilapidated space, Caleb settled onto a chair, contemplating the path that lay ahead. After a brief pause, he instructed them to gather their belongings, for he intended to bring them to his home. He spoke of delectable meals, shelter under his roof, and the warmth of his kind-hearted wife awaiting their arrival. The next day, they would venture together to the hospital to ascertain their grandmother's condition. The girls complied, swiftly arranging their essentials into bags, affirming their readiness for the journey. Once settled within the truck again, the girls surrendered to slumber almost instantly. Caleb's wife, Avery, had been consumed by worry as 2 hours had elapsed beyond Caleb's anticipated arrival time. Upon spotting the familiar truck through the window, she dashed out to greet her husband. As he emerged from the vehicle, she enveloped him in an embrace. "Shoo, my love, it's all right. An incident occurred on the road. I'll explain everything once we're home. Let's get the girls to bed," Caleb assured, opening the door. Inside, 2 serene figures were dozing on the seat. Caleb took one in his arms while Avery did the same with the other, conveying them into the house. With the girls settled on the bed, Caleb departed the room. Avery shed her coat and shoes, cocooned herself in a blanket, and joined her husband outside. Over dinner, he recounted the entire episode. Avery grasped the weight of his decision to not leave the girls alone, yet her apprehensions lingered regarding potential accusations of child abduction. The subsequent day, Caleb directed his steps toward the hospital where the elderly woman had been admitted. Meanwhile, Avery orchestrated breakfast in the kitchen for the children. Unexpectedly, two bashful young girls materialized at the door. Avery's smile welcomed them inside, where she introduced herself and elicited their names. The girls responded as Layla and Lillian. Avery extended another smile and prompted them to freshen up before partaking in breakfast. Equipped with new toothbrushes, the girls were instructed in the workings of the warm tap water. While Caleb had apprised her of the dilapidated state of the girls' abode, Avery realized that even the presence of hot water was a luxury for them. Post-ablutions, the girls embarked on changing into the clothes they had brought from their former dwelling. Avery intervened, proposing to launder their clothes beforehand and providing them with her t-shirts, which could serve as dresses and make them feel beautiful. And so they did. After breakfast, Avery switched on cartoons, leaving the girls astounded by the enormity of the television screen. Avery gazed upon the young visitors with admiration. Simultaneously, Caleb found himself situated in the hospital ward with the girl's grandmother, known as Mrs. Mitchell. A notable improvement in her health was apparent. Repeatedly inquiring about her granddaughters, the nurses assured her that they were with her supposed nephew. However, Mrs. Mitchell harbored the awareness that she lacked any nephew, her heart plagued by disquiet. Contemplating summoning the authorities, her intentions were halted by Caleb's entrance. Identifying himself, he recounted the events of the prior day, reassuring her of her grandchildren's well-being. As his narrative concluded, Mrs. Mitchell dabbed at her tears and offered her gratitude. "Fear not, Mrs. Mitchell. Whilst you convalesce in the hospital, the girls shall reside with us. They shall remain unharmed, and I pledge to bring them to you at the earliest opportunity. You will witness their safety firsthand." "But where are their parents?" Caleb inquired. In response, the elderly woman heaved a sigh and commenced her tale. A daughter, though far from virtuous, had borne the girls before forsaking her responsibilities. One after the other, she relinquished them to Mrs. Mitchell's care, eventually departing for the bustling city. The notion of reclaiming her maternal rights and securing custody of the girls lingered as an elusive fantasy. Circumstances and resources thwarted such aspirations. The prospect of an orphanage loomed if she faltered. Her ailment had initially been dismissed as transitory, but alas, it endured. Caleb sought to offer solace. "Worry not, all shall be well. For now, the girls shall stay with us. I shall assume the role of your nephew. Refusal is futile. They possess no kin but you, and your recovery is paramount." Upon his return home, Caleb divulged the saga to Avery, who steadfastly stood by her husband's side. Several days later, he accompanied the girls to reunite with their grandmother. Arrayed in lovely attire with tidy braids, the girls elicited a smile from Grandma. As they withdrew, she beckoned Avery closer for a private exchange. "My dear, I perceive the affection you hold for my girls. Your heart and your husband's are benevolent indeed. I implore your patience and extend our apologies for any distress we've caused. Most would act similarly in our situation. Moreover, I believe our encounter serves a purpose, guided by the divine," Grandma conveyed. Avery reciprocated the sentiment, extending well wishes before exiting the room. The city expedition had imprinted vivid memories upon the girls' minds, reuniting with their grandmother, strolling through the park, and visiting a cafe. As slumber claimed them, Caleb and Avery engaged in a solemn discussion. "Caleb, Mrs. Mitchell's release is imminent. Our home is spacious, and I've grown accustomed to having the girls around. Perhaps we could transfer them from the hospital to our residence. There's ample room, and our house truly comes alive with them, Avery proposed. A smile crept across Caleb's face. He had harbored the same idea but hesitated to voice it. A week later, he ushered the girls' grandmother into their newfound abode. The impending arrival of Mrs. Mitchell was met with joyful anticipation, as the girls and Avery collaborated in preparing a plethora of treats. Following a satisfying dinner, the sisters embarked on play, while the adults convened in the kitchen. The tranquil atmosphere was disrupted by Caleb, who ventured to break the silence. "Mrs. Mitchell, you're welcome to stay here with us, alongside the girls. Consider this, your current residence is quite aged and poses safety concerns. Moreover, your village lacks essential amenities like schools and medical centers. Our village, on the other hand, is spacious and accommodating. The girls have acclimated well, and there's ample room for all of us in our home," Caleb conveyed. Baffled, Mrs. Mitchell grappled for words. She, too, had forged a strong bond with this couple, relishing in newfound contentment. Overwhelmed by gratitude, tears welled in her eyes as she nodded in agreement. In a heartwarming display of unity, Avery and Caleb embraced her, bestowing an added warmth upon the abode. The subsequent period proved challenging for all parties involved. Aided by the support of Child Protective Services and Mrs. Mitchell herself, Caleb and Avery embarked on the process of relinquishing the girls' mother's parental rights, subsequently adopting the sisters as their own. Amid the balmy embrace of summer, as the girls frolicked in the yard and Mrs. Mitchell orchestrated affairs in the kitchen, Avery and Caleb entered the room, placing documents upon the table. "We've completed the formalities. As of now, we are officially a family. No external forces can impede our pursuit of happiness," Avery jubilantly proclaimed. Soon, the entire family convened on the patio, commemorating this transformative day. However, before Caleb could address the assembly, Avery interjected. "May I share some words?" With unanimous consent, she continued, "To my cherished family, my loving husband, my daughters, and my newfound mother. My heart swells with joy at the prospect of us being united. The love I hold for each of you is immeasurable. But for a few weeks, I've been harboring a secret, and it's time to reveal it. Our family is poised to expand even further." Amid excited exclamations from the girls about their preference for a brother or sister, Caleb remained in a state of speechless astonishment. Only when Mrs. Mitchell's words resonated did he seemingly rouse from his stupor. Springing to his feet, he enveloped his wife, a mixture of emotions playing across his features. Happiness radiated from his being, an emotion that encompassed his fortuitous encounter with the girls that fateful night, and the realization that he was poised to become a father once again, embracing Claire and Mia as integral parts of his family. Dear readers, I hope this tale has brought you joy. May your days be filled with warmth, and until we meet again, take care and cherish those precious moments that make life truly extraordinary.